Hi everyone, welcome to Lola's Frugal Life. This is episode number 180. Today we're going to be talking about frugal tips for buying a car. So please stick around for a few quick words from our sponsor and we'll get right into the show. So today's topic is another one that was suggested by a listener. So I'm really excited to cover this topic, and I really liked the idea of doing this about purchasing a car. So the actual topic suggestion was how to buy a car for the first time, kind of geared towards younger people that were going to be purchasing a car and having maybe no idea of how to even approach it. But I decided to do it a little more generally to include tips that could be used by a first-time car buyer as well as anyone who might need to purchase a car. So it's not specifically geared towards buying a car for the first time, but it's just more kind of frugal tips about buying a car in general. So the woman who suggested this episode had shared advice that her dad had given her when buying their first house. She said he told them, you have lived this long without this house, so you can live the rest of your life without it. The same logic can be applied to pretty much anything and is definitely good advice to consider when making any large purchase, including a car. You've lived this long without this car, you can live the rest of your life without it. Because buying a car is very emotional, and as frugal or level-headed as you think you are, you can still get caught up in the sales pitches and the shiny, beautiful cars with all the upgrades. It's very tempting to put yourself in a situation that you really don't want to. And, for most of us, it takes a good amount of effort to not allow these emotions to get us into a financial situation that we're going to regret later. So before you go out to start looking for a car, make sure you prepare yourself. You want to make sure that you have a budget. That's like the very first basic step before you go out and start looking for a car. Know what your budget is going to be before you go out and be committed to stick to it. Don't let the salesman convince you that you can afford more. They don't have to deal with your financial consequences of purchasing more vehicle than you can afford. You're the one that's going to have to deal with that decision for the life of this car. When you're considering your budget, don't forget about the cost of insurance. If you're replacing a car that you owned with a car you're paying cash for, then you're not increasing your coverage, and that won't really be an issue. But if you're adding another car to your household, or if you're increasing coverage because you are financing a car and you need to put full coverage on, you definitely need to make sure you consider the cost of that in your budget, because depending on where you live and the cost of car insurance, that could be a pretty decent amount per month that you're going to have to add, to your expenses now. If possible, ideally you want to purchase the car with cash. But I understand many of us have to finance vehicles. So if you are financing the vehicle, you need to keep your focus on the price of the vehicle, not what do you want the monthly payment to be? Because that seems like what they all ask. And the reason they do that is because they're going to play with the length of the loan and the interest rates to try and get the payment to be what you say you can afford monthly. But you don't want to focus on what the monthly payment is. You want to focus on sticking with the price that you wanted to pay for the vehicle. Because just because they can stretch out the payment so that you can afford it monthly, well, that doesn't help you 7 years from now when you're still making those payments on the car that isn't quite as awesome anymore as it was when they sold it to you. So you really want to try and focus on getting the price that you saw listed and sticking with that type of vehicle, and not letting them try and upgrade you to another vehicle that you can't afford, because they can make the payments lower by stretching it out over a longer amount of time. If you do have cash, you could consider purchasing a vehicle directly from an individual. The only issue there is that if the car has issues right away, you have little recourse. But if you can make sure that you're fairly comfortable that the person's honest, maybe they have a couple mutual friends, or someone knows them, or they're kind of like in a general circle and you feel like you could trust them, that's always a really great way to buy a car, because you can get a much better deal than you can when going to a car dealership, just because they don't have the overhead, and they're usually willing to take a lower price because they just want to get rid of the car because they've got a new vehicle, or they're going to buy a new vehicle or whatever. You want to try and shop online if you can first, and read reviews. Unless you're already brand loyal, you want to have an idea of the type of car you're looking for. Certain cars tend to have a reputation to require less maintenance and last a lot longer. So you want to make sure that you're familiar with that, and kind of go in sort of knowing like maybe one or two sort of types of cars that you're trying to kind of focus on and what the price ranges should be for those. You don't want to get talked into buying a car that looks great but has a really bad reputation on reliability just because you didn't know about it. So really try and do some research before you go out there. And for anyone who's younger out there listening, and I guess really for us adults too, that might be listening to this, please stay focused on reliability and not how cool the car looks. It won't look that cool if you're broken down on the side of the road. So you really have to try and keep yourself in check and not let yourself get caught up in some of these cars that look like really amazing and have all these really cool features, and oh well, maybe if I do this or that, I think I can get this payment, or I can spare the extra money. Really try and make yourself stick with that budget, because you'll be so much happier if you have a nice, reliable car that you can afford than a fancy car that you can't afford and maybe that has issues or breaks down or whatever. Before you get to the car dealership, you need to decide, this is my opinion, I think you should decide before you get there if you want to add the extended warranty or not. I personally do not enter into the extended warranties because I've decided that I'm okay with taking the risk that I might have an issue later on. And in my personal experience, had I gotten warranties on everything that offered them, especially cars, it would have cost me a lot more than the actual times I had to do repairs. When I do buy a car, I only buy cars that are known for reliability, so I don't really feel too worried about an extended warranty. But this is definitely a personal decision that you need to make and how comfortable you feel with taking risk in this area. But I could tell you, if you don't think you're going to want the warranty, be prepared to hold your ground, because they will sell you hard on this, and you'll need to be willing to stay firm and decide no matter what that you're not going to take the coverage, because they're going to really try to convince you that you are not a very smart person because you're not taking this coverage. So do your research ahead of time. Look at, see if you can get information on what the costs are, or at least kind of maybe general information, and just be firm if you decide not to take it. If you feel like this is going to be something that you are going to want to do, then just make sure that you consider this in your budget also. When you're figuring out what your budget is, so you want to consider what the cost of the car is, what your insurance might go up, and what the extended warranty might be. I have a funny story actually about extended warranty. So we recently had to purchase a used car, and when I went in, I knew that I wasn't going to want the warranty, and I had been through the experience so many times of being sold the warranty and told how I was basically crazy for not taking it, and I just really didn't feel like going through all that. So I walked in, and before they even showed me the car, I said, before we get started, I just want to let you know I'm not interested in the extended warranty. I don't want to have to go through the whole process. I'm 100% not going to take it, and I don't want to waste anyone's time. And the guy said he was pretty okay with it actually, and he asked me to explain why, and I just said, personally, I didn't feel like it was worth it to me. And then so we didn't have to go through it, which was great. But then when I did go in to the financing part, because I did have to finance this vehicle, they did try and sell me one more time, but I just was still very firm, and I didn't listen to the whole sales pitch about it. So it was kind of funny because I just was like, I'm not going through that again, because they really do try and put pressure on you. So you really want to know if it's something you want or something that you don't want, because if it's something that you don't want, they can definitely work to try and convince you that it's something you should get. So just kind of try and have that decision made before you go in there. Another thing you want to consider as part of your budget is any additional fees that might be added to the price. Like most of us will have to pay taxes, registration fees, but some dealers have other fees too. Like for example, if you're buying a certified pre-owned car, some dealerships or brands, I don't know how it works, who does it and who doesn't, but some of them definitely add fees for a certified pre-owned car, and it doesn't seem to always be listed in the price that you see online for that vehicle. And that can add on thousands of dollars. So you might want to call the dealership beforehand if you are looking to purchase a certified pre-owned vehicle and ask them if there's any additional fees for that and if it was included in the price that you're seeing online, because that can really catch you off guard. So sometimes we get into a situation where our current car has broken down and it's at the point where it's not worth the money to get repairs needed. And now we're in an emergency situation where we have to buy another car, assuming that you don't have another one available to use. And now we're under pressure because we need to get a car right away. So this really puts us in a bad situation because not only are our choices limited, but it adds to the emotional aspect of making this decision because we feel like, you know, we had this car breakdown, we need to really get a new car right away, we need to make sure we get a better car because we don't want this to ever happen again. And you can get yourself to the point where you feel like you need to upgrade more than you do so that you don't ever have a car break down like this on you again. So, and you were kind of rushed into it because you weren't planning on getting a car right now. So if something like that happens, just really try and take at least a little bit of time to get yourself in the right frame of mind, think about a budget, and just at least take those few little steps before you go out to purchase the car, even though it might be within the next couple of hours of when this happens. Just really try and get yourself grounded because, you know, when something like that happens, you know, you can really make poor decisions sometimes just because you're in that emotional state. So just some other kind of general tips. You know, sometimes in the moment, it can really be easy to let yourself get caught up in buying an expensive, beautiful car that's way out of your budget. But if they offer to show you cars that are out of your price range, you really should try and nicely let them know that you're not interested. Because once they show it to you, you can easily talk yourself into how you can make this work. And it's just not worth it. You've already looked at your finances. You already decided what your budget was. And that's what your budget should be because that's what you can afford. You really don't want to get yourself into a situation where you can't afford the other things you want in life just because you have this car. And to me, I always suggest that reliability is the most important. I mean, a car that starts up every time you need it will make you much happier than a car that has a sunroof and heated seats. So just really, really try and be rational when you're out there looking at these cars because some of them are like really cool and fancy and have all these things and, you know, you can really get suckered into that. So just really try and keep yourself, you know, with those thoughts in your mind, what your budget is and what you really need out of this car. I actually purchased a Toyota Corolla, just talking about reliability. I purchased a Toyota Corolla probably, I think it's been about 14 years ago. It was the only car on the lot I could afford. And it was one of those situations where my other car had broken down and I needed a car like right away. So unfortunately for me, it had manual roll-up windows, manual locks, manual everything. It was so opposite of fancy, it's ridiculous. And this was, like I said, only 14 years ago. So believe it or not, they did, at least at that time, still make cars with manual locks. I didn't even realize they did. But anyway, I drove this car for an hour back and forth to work, like an hour each way for over 10 years. I never had a problem. When I finally decided to upgrade my vehicle, I tried to trade it in, and they basically wanted me to pay them to take it. Like they were not going to trade in that car. It had over 200,000 miles on it. So it was basically useless to the dealership. But I wound up giving it to my son, who was just starting college and commuting locally and working locally too. So 2 years later, he's still driving that car back and forth to work and college. So just wanted to share that story because, you know, if you do take your time, and not saying that all of those cars would have necessarily lasted that long, but it's just, it can be really worth it if you just take the time and try and find a car has a really good history of reliability and try and focus more in that area to make sure that you're getting a good value for your money. Also, just one other final tip, if you do have a mechanic that you trust, you can always consider having the car checked out depending on how unsure you are. It's not something I typically do. I did have it done once when we were buying a truck, a pickup truck, just because I wasn't totally sure about, I don't know, if it had some issues or whatever. And we were purposely buying a pickup truck with higher mileage because we were using it as like a spare vehicle, like to tow our camper and stuff like that. So we weren't buying like a lower mileage car like we normally did. So we did have it done that one time just to make sure that there was like no issues with it having had higher mileage. But other than that, I've never actually done that, just because I'm usually buying a car that has like is known to be reliable, and usually I'm buying like a lower mileage car that I plan to keep for a really long time. But that's definitely an option if you have someone that you can trust. You don't want to just use any mechanic because, you do have to pay for that, and you don't know if you're getting a good opinion or not for sure. But, if you have one that you can trust, that's always an option too. So that's it for today. I hope this was helpful in some way. If you'd like to reach out to me for any reason, you can reach me at facebook.com/Lola's Frugal Life. We also have a private listeners group there, which is at facebook.com/groups/Lola's Frugal Life, or you can email me at lolasfrugallife@gmail.com. Any episode suggestions, tips, whatever reason you want to contact me, that's how you can reach me. I also have a brand new YouTube channel. It's pretty much exactly the same as the show, so there's really no reason to go check it out unless you find that might be an easier way for you to listen. The only thing I really do like about it differently from the regular podcast is just that I was able to group all the episodes by category. So if you're someone that just listens to these topic episodes, or someone that just listens to the meal plans, or obviously if you're listening to this, you're not only listening to the meal plans, but whatever. If you like certain types of episodes more than others, it kind of has them categorized in that way. So that's that. And if you're interested in financially supporting the show, there is a link in the episode details. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a really awesome day.